of uh, apps with AI. So, Chris, you're going to show us an app you developed with AI.
Yeah, and I didn't touch a single like true to form, right? You inspired me to create a no touch something, right? Like you did the diet plan, and I was like, man, that's just so simply beautiful. Like how can I do the same thing? It didn't work out that way, but I still landed with something pretty cool. So the approach that I'm taking right now in my workflows is I basically created a bunch of projects, and each one of these projects helps me push an idea through a funnel. So just like at work, when I think about ideas and I have to do the PRD and the research, right? It's just my funnel. So like I've got an idea validator. I've given it some instructions. It's going to be pragmatic. It literally will force me to go test and experiment before I go further down the road. So it's like my own Jeff. Um, so I use it and then I just keep continuing to snowball my context. You can see I load files into the project, so it always has the context, and I'll link my GitHub when I get to that level. So like by the time I get to mobile app, that's interesting. It's not showing all my stuff there. By the time I get to the mobile app stuff or the web app, I've got tons of content in there. I've got good enough instructions that I get a quality thing. Uh, and when I'm interacting with it, I'm literally just talking to it like I would be talking to you, just like plain English. We're writing everything to GitHub, so it's writing the README, right? Like this is the project. So basically, I tried to figure out how I could help my community. And my community is like in wine country, but it's not economically savvy and it's real small. So it's like I can bring traffic in, right? So there's like 50 wineries. There's a lot of people coming in from like Charlotte and Raleigh. So there's an opportunity. How I decided to use AI is in the way that we're giving them an itinerary. So the problem that I found and the way I found this is I created a funnel, survey funnel using Claude. Same thing. I've got a whole lead generation survey funnel. This funnel I've had, this is live, right? So I've got 102 responses. I've reviewed 100 of them, so I've got a human in the middle of this. So I am still in the process of doing a review. I understand how many would pay, where I've just got insights about all the things that are being said, right? I'm feeding that into a model downstream that helped me generate the PRD that ended up landing on this, right? This is the beta version of the product that I'll launch on the 20th of January. And basically what happens is I've orchestrated a bunch of steps that as you plan it, you're interacting with an LLM. It's asking you questions about your wine country trip that you want to take. Me and my wife want to go to wine country. I'll be honest, I know very little about wine, and that's the honest truth. So I can go through this process, right? I want to do a multi-day or a single day trip, so it has instructions to handle either scenario, um, and it'll continue going. At the end of it,
I really like the fact that you kind of preload the answers. So you're kind of constraining a little bit.
I found if I didn't, the hallucinations were so bad that I couldn't prompt my way out of them. Like I couldn't give it good enough instruction to keep it from hallucinating. Like I spent a lot of
Interesting.
time. Yeah, it was really frustrating because I was trying to one shot everything in a single prompt, and it was killing me. So it'll continue at the end of it. It'll actually prompt you for checkout. So there's three different pricing tiers that gives you different service, all the way up to me like intervening and doing the registration for you, right? Um, at the end of it, you're going to get an itinerary that's going to be in a downloadable PDF format. So, and well, I'll take you through it real quick, and then I'll show you in Git
Sure.
so that you can see what was generated with the AI and what wasn't, because it comes together in a couple different ways. Uh, so it's generating all this content here, all the copy, right? I'm using the API call to generate the PDF with React PDF. Um,
Are you using stupid weather server to get the weather forecast?
I'm using Open Metro, I think, or something. I'll show you in there. But I'm getting the weather, and you can see I'm still trying to work out the bugs on some of the lodging stuff. But it'll give a summary of the weather. It won't be as confident. I've told it not to be like say every day be this temperature because the weatherman lies every day. Uh, give them some good to know tips and tricks. Here's if you're going there and you need a way to do transportation, it's going and looking at what transportation's available and suggesting you. I basically told it force a DD or force them to acknowledge that they're going to have a designated driver because it is a wine country trip, right? Like trying to be responsible. Um, so it goes in by day, shows them here's the wineries, when you should arrive. It matches to your responses at 98%. Here's why we picked it. Here's some things to try. Here's some insider tips. There's the actual information, and there's Google Maps to direct it. So it'll just continue going. It suggests as lunch. There's time between this, so I'm actually doing a call to Google Routes and optimizing the wineries. I'll show you that in a second, but it just continues on, right? So that's their itinerary. If they view it in the web, it does a Google call, so they can click the route and it'll actually load it up for them and show them, hey, you know, the whole trip's going to take this much time if you do everything in that day. All right, so how that's kind of working, right? Uh, let me get down into orchestration, right? So I've got wineries. I've got a winery database. I basically sat down and had a conversation with the LLM about everything that I should consider, and I've got over 100 attributes that is being populated and maintained in that database. It's in Supabase. Um, so that is what's being used I'm basically using it as my own rag to some extent to say I can't afford a winery hallucination and I can't afford for you to say the wrong signature wine, right? So I need to force all that. And then what that helps me do is because of the requirements from the quiz, I can then filter down and say, I really only want the top N of these wineries that I'm going to feed to get an AI score, right? Like I just get me to the right list. I do a single call. I get a stack rank, and then I'm passing that into Google Routes. That's then ordering them and telling me which route to take them on. And then I'm coming back and building the schedule with the time slots. The rest of this, right? The meal recommendations, the lodging selections, and the narrative is part of that. Me breaking apart that one shot, right? I took that one shot and turned it into 10 steps that it takes at the end of the day. So I'm like enforcing a hard prompt on the meal recommendations. No fast food, right? Like I want, if there's a winery that has food, make it the lunch location, right? Like think about these things. Same with the lodging. So at the end of it, after it generates the narrative, it's putting all this back and writing it into Supabase, and then it assembles that final output. What I learned is I spent a lot of time mucking with this, and it was going to impact what I'd already developed in my PDF export, my web view, and my email delivery. So I built a transformation layer that allows me to muck with one and not impact the other. So I just needed something because I kept tweaking too much. But yeah, so I had to think about the local knowledge base. I've got some Zod validation in there. Um, I've went down the rabbit hole of cost. I actually ran a query that was one of the itineraries cost me $6 because I'm an idiot. And that's how I learned to cull down the wineries, 35 wineries, and optimize the routes. It's an interesting API call. um, but then here, okay, so what AI handles versus what I'm handling with code, right? So the scoring and ranking is with AI. How I'm doing that or how I'm managing some of that um, in the admin side in my wineries as I'm going and visiting these wineries. Like I went and visited this one the other day. I can go update all this information, the stuff that's real critical for me that I'm feeding into the model to think about the matching. I'm going in and tagging and adding context. What you should avoid, what it's perfect for, because every one of them's so different. And everybody, all the respondents have told me it's the discovery and matching of the winery to what I like. So I'm like, okay, then I'm gonna make a big deal out about this. Um, so then the meal selection, like I said, it's literally just I'm really hard instructions about the location and what to offer. Same with the lodging, just straight LLM, right? Nothing crazy. Um, Same with the narrative. I'm just feeding everything back into it to generate the end, and then it's code all the way to the end.
Cool.
So uh, I've learned a lot. God knows I've learned a lot. It wrote all this. I just reviewed so it's keeping I thank it for its documentation. So the whole data flow, the orchestration, it wrote test cases for me that we ran local. So that's how I understood the duration and the cost and things like that. So ran all that before I ever loaded it into Vercel and got it up and going. But I'll dump the link and y'all can poke through. But my whole architecture is there, so it's pretty amazing. Uh, and I can thank y'all for it. Right.
Awesome. Cool. Okay. So next, well, I'm going to show what I did and give you a little peek at that. So I'll start kind of in the same spot with I think a good idea is to start with a requirements document, right? So the basic idea is, as most of you know, I had heart surgery 3 months ago, and as part of that, my cardiologist requested that I be on a kind of a special diet, which is pretty typical for post cardiac stuff. And in fact, you can here's my Claude interpretation of the diet. So I gave Claude the diet and said, make me a cartoon, make me a graphic. So it's pretty. I mean, it's all pretty much common sense stuff. The biggest thing though is reduction in sodium. So that this is called the DASH diet, which is a dietary approach to hypertension, to systemic hypertension. So it's been well documented, well studied, well vetted over the last, I don't know, 30 plus years as sort of an optimal diet for people that have had surgery. So uh, I took that, and the idea that I had was there's a million recipes on the internet. There's a million recipes that you probably have from your grandma, for those of us who cook, but they're all loaded with sodium and stuff like that. Or from where Chris is at, they're all deep fried, uh, yeah, coated with batter and deep fried. So, what I wanted to do was create an AI driven website that would take any recipe and rethink it in terms of this diet. So that's what the PRD does. So the persona, the user is a home cook seeking to create healthy versions of any recipe. Well, and of course there are some recipes that you really can't do much with. Um, without just without really altering them. So anyway, let me pop over to and I'm sorry. So one thing that I noticed, Chris, and maybe you can confirm this, is it looks to me like you used the Claude chatbot to do most of your generation. Is that true?
I actually bounced it between that and Grok because conversationally I like Grok better. But when it came time to rock and roll, it was all Claude.
Right. But I guess my point is you used the chatbot interface of
Oh,
both of those
100%.
to, yeah.
Yeah.
So a little bit different here. I am using the Claude extension within VS Code. So this is Claude Code within within VS Code. So
Do you have
here,
content? Does it compact like in the desktop app when you're
yep,
using this?
absolutely it'll automatically
Okay.
compact and so on. So this is the Claude Code for VS Code. It's currently up to, and it is an official Anthropic uh, piece of software. And essentially, what it does is it brings the Claude Code interface as opposed to the Claude chatbot interface. There are some subtle differences. There's lots of commands you can give it that are not available in the chatbot interface that are more specific for coding. It doesn't have all of the Claude code, and we can talk about some differences there, but it's pretty good. So I took the PRD and had it generate the code. And so what we end up with is here's the website. So everything on this website was generated by Claude Code, including this image. So most of the images, all of the workflow, etc. So the first thing that I've got is you can find a recipe on the internet and just paste in the URL and it will extract the recipe from that web page. You can paste in text, so you could actually just write a recipe here, or you can upload a file, or you can ask it to create an original from kind of a chat bot. So you can say, I want a recipe like this. But let me just show you this. So I've got a recipe that my friend in Italy, uh, he was cooking for us one night, and I asked him to write down the recipe. And you can see it's handwritten. Um, so I've got a little handwritten recipe, and it will do the OCR on anything from your grandma's handwriting down to something off the internet. Naturally, for goodness sake. Well, I'm
It's
not
a
gonna. I'm
Monday,
not gonna.
Tom.
I know it's. I'll just go find a recipe. I'm not sure what's going on. I haven't tested. Actually, I haven't. Of course, I haven't tested this thing in a couple of weeks. I know it's up and running because I've showed it to the people at cardiac rehab, and they've been using it. I can tell from the charges I've been seeing. Uh, um, we'll just search the internet. Let me just see if anything works at all. And okay, so here's man, just trying to find anything. There we go. Okay. So we'll go grab you can see that we've got a recipe embedded in here amongst a lot of other stuff. It's possible that I've run out of funds in Open Router or something. So that may be the issue. There we go. Okay, so it went to the website, it went to that web page, and I'm using an agent called Firecrawl to do that. And it goes and it extracts the web page, and then AI extracts the recipe out of there. So once we've got the recipe, then we can go over here, and I've actually got the choice of two different diets. Pritikin ICR, intensive cardiac rehab. That's what my rehab uses. My cardiologist uses DASH. So basically, we just hit convert, and it's going to use AI on the back end to convert this recipe and look for ways to pull the salt out of it. It generates this picture as its idea of what the converted recipe ought to look like. And now this does take a reasonable amount of time because I'm asking it to do a lot. And it's not just converting the recipe, but it's actually going to give us options. So it's going to represent the recipe, and it's going to give us a bunch of different options in terms of things that it can do to reduce sodium. That's why it takes a little bit longer. So it gives me kind of an overall compliance score. Like it's not too bad actually as recipes go, and it tells us, what's good about it. So it makes 4, 5, 6 recommendations, and kind of in priority order. So it has, we're going to get rid of all the salt. And you can see up here, it reduced that by 300 milligrams. We'll get rid of the double cream, probably a good idea for heart patients. It suggests replacing Parmesan with an alternative. We can use nutritional yeast, yuck. We can replace Parmesan with feta, or we can just keep it as is. We'll leave that one alone. Parmesan is not that bad. 1 tablespoon of butter. Let's switch it to olive oil. Switch the pasta to whole wheat, and we'll leave the rest of it alone. And you can kind of see up here, it gives you a little bit of a scoreboard of what that does. It reduced the fat by 36 grams, calories by 300, sodium by 250, etc. And then we can apply that, and it'll take those recommendations, those choices, and actually transform the recipe completely.
Hey Tom,
Um,
how are you giving it the information about each diet? Like, is that just like you plug in a certain number of things and you've got it set up that way, or?
the LLMs that I'm using know these diets already.
Okay.
So I'm just letting it use its general knowledge, but I do have the ability for lesser known diets. I can add other diets, and I can add the parameters. So it's not too bad. So here's the new diet, and it kind of gives you the key modifications here. And then what it's doing is it's calculating the nutrition facts and new compliance scores down here. That takes a little bit longer. It has a little bit more thinking to do. But now we've got a brand new recipe. And here's our summary of changes. It reduced the calories from 880 to 590. It reduced sodium by 400 milligrams, etc. It gives us, we raised our compliance from 4.7 to 8.3. So we went from needs improvement to good. It's not perfect yet. We didn't accept all the recommendations. And now we have the option to create a cookbook page that we can print out, and we have some choices. Let's do rustic, and we'll just generate that. Now this is going to use, so I'm using probably 4 different AI models. I'm using very lightweight models to do simple things. This is using Gemini Nano Banano Pro. This is the most expensive, in terms of budget, this is the most expensive part of the operation, because Nano Banana Pro is relatively expensive to use, probably justifiably so. Um, but here's our suitable for printing uh, rustic version of the recipe with little icons we can use to show us what to do, kind of IKEA style, with no words really necessary. And then we can download it, we can print it, etc. So that's the entire workflow. We can go back and convert another recipe. We can step back and so on. So that's what I've been working on. Again, there's multiple LLMs on the back end, but the important thing is that in addition to what Chris was talking about, I have literally not even opened any of the code. I've never even looked at the code. I've let This is an experiment on my part to see how good Claude can do generating the code. So my goal is to never look at the code. And Claude is doing everything from generating cartoons to generating the PRD to generating the code to editing the code, every aspect of it. So it's been a very interesting operation. Um, so that's what I've been working on. Now, for our next sort of show and tell, what we wanted to do is ask Parit to show some of the Claude skills that he's been using. He's been working on both ICON/Viori projects as well as some personal projects, and he's been experimenting a lot with Claude Code skills. So Parit, why don't you take it away and show us some of the skills that you've been working on, if you're all set to do that.
I don't have the skills. I haven't set up many skills, but I mainly use the file system MCP.
Right. Yeah, yeah. I'm
Um,
sorry. Yeah, agents or skills. Sorry.
yeah, so I can show that. Let me
Yeah.
just.
I would be lost without having that file system MCP, if I'm being honest.
Yeah. I mean, it's very easy to set up. If you go here, just a second. So here's the Git um, link for the file system MCP. It's from the official Claude Model Context Protocol GitHub. Um, I'm just gonna paste it in chat here. So you need to have Claude Desktop set up. Um, and then what you do is go to the README of the GitHub and scroll a bit down. And here you can see usage with Claude Desktop. And then there is this JSON, this npx JSON that you have to just copy. Very similar to how Tom showed about his MCP with Valo. You go here, you go to settings, you go to developer, and you change the config file. Um,
Oh, it's interesting. I see. I did it a completely different way through the connectors.
okay, the connector. Huh?
Yeah.
I think
Same,
that
same.
would be a online downloader. I think this is npx one. Um, so yeah, you just paste it here, and all you have to do is any folder that you want to expose to Claude, you just put their path into this. So I mean, this is one of my like notes folder. So I've put it here, and then you close it, you restart Claude, and you go into any chat. It should show you as a. I mean, it's a connector. It is actually a connector, but that's how you configure it in this one. So I don't know, Chris, how did you configure it?
Go
If
back
you
to
go
your
to
settings
Yeah, go back to
Settings.
settings.
and there's a connector tab, yeah, and then it'll let you go to browse connectors, and then there's
And your file
web.
system is there.
Yeah,
Ah,
So
it is actually, yeah.
yeah, so
okay.
you just did it the hard way.
Wow.
So like I
Okay.
set up Canva, Figma, right, so that it will do that
Ah,
wireframes for me and all that stuff. So yeah, this is I
oh,
like
this
to
is much
explore and
easier.
through that.
This is much easier. Okay.
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
and sometimes it's not it hasn't gone through the official approval, so you got to do what you did. And
Right.
maybe you did that before it existed here, but
Yeah.
um,
No, I just did this pretty recently. And
okay.
yeah, I didn't know this was there. Yeah, this would have been easier. Um,
Well, that's why this is great to share because
yeah.
there's 5 different ways to do everything, and sometimes people have figured out the easier way to do it.
Yeah.
So show
Um,
us what it can do.
so yeah, I mean, go here, you can say list the files in my folder. You can make it to write um a new document, anything from your notes. So I mean, my notes folder is an Obsidian Vault, if people know what Obsidian is. It's basically any kind of I mean, I have a note-taking system. So what I've done is I mean, I'm planning to now make a skills.md file. So all these are MD files in each of these folders, and they all have some specific intent. So um, my idea is to make a skills .md file, which basically will tell Claude what each of these folders means and how to configure them and how they're connected to each other, so that it can easily navigate through my notes and add any new note. And all my notes are connected by each other, so they reference each other by another note, and they have a tag. So I can improve my system with Claude, um with my own instructions. So that's what my like idea is. Every time I take a new note, I can have a conversation with Claude. Instead of creating a new note, it will go through my previous notes and tell me what I had written before. So I become more efficient effective at note taking as well. So yeah, that's sort of my idea. I'm still in the works. Um, but yeah, I find it to be very efficient when you have your system set up. Like you gotta have your own system for for note taking. And that comes with time, to understand how you write things down, uh, in whenever you're thinking about something. So yeah, um, that's one of the things I was trying to build. The other thing is it's not visible in my this Mac uh, instance, but it's there on the cloud PC. Is I built an MLOps system for our data science team, where we have a workflow for preparing data for models, training the models, logging them to MLflow and then to Snowflake, and then inferencing them in real time or in like at a time when it's needed. So I've created a whole system for that, and basically I can. And now I'm going to create a skills.md file for that as well. So now I can tell Claude on the go to do like a data science experiment, and it will systematically build these files in the same template that we've always built. Um, and we can like
Well,
spin up any experiment whenever we want, and it'll all be like very systematic.
now we have
Um,
to converge my Valo access with your data science thing.
yeah, absolutely. That'll
Let
that'll be
me
the yeah. Holy Grail.
Yeah, let me show you. Let me show you a little bit of that if I can. If you're done.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so I'm over on the Cloud PC, and you can see I've got these are I've got MCP agents for Valo, and I've also got skills. So I'll just show everybody kind of what's a skill like. So a skill is just a markdown file. Um, so this one's called Valo context. So it gives Claude a little bit of context about the Valo system, some basic ideas. And let me open the preview version so it's formatted a little nicer. I'm not going to verify that everything in here is accurate. This is just a quick idea I've been sketching out. But basically what happens is you load this into Claude, and I'll show you how that happens. And this is just some background information. The key part, this first section is called the front matter. And basically what you do is you say when to use this skill and what, if any, what MCP tools it'll use. But you want to give it a short little description of when to use this. So here, why? So why do we care? Well, context windows are limited. So when somebody says there's a million tokens of context available, yeah, not really. It When that starts getting above maybe 100, 200,000 tokens, which is pretty easy to do these days, things start to deteriorate pretty fast, and you'll notice that. So what happens is if you've got a bunch of stuff, so I've got Valo context, I've got Valo dictionary, so I've got all kinds of dictionary like all the abbreviations that Valo uses in the data in the database, I've got defined here. So, but if I take all of this stuff and I jam it into the context window, you can see I've got dictionary, I've got examples I've got exploration ideas, I've got relationships between tables, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. If I took all of that and put it into the context window, I'd be full. I wouldn't have enough room for any data. So the idea is this stuff is only used when it's needed, and it uses the description to decide if it's useful or not. So if we go over to Claude Desktop, and I go into that same area that Parit was just in, and we look at capabilities, all these skills are listed. So I've got relationships, and it shows what is this skill. It's a guide to joining Valo views. I've got exploration, I've got the examples, context, but there are some also that are built in. So I can just say what skills are available. And it knows, it'll kind of look. And so it has core, so it has the ability to create PDFs, it can create PowerPoints, it can create spreadsheets, it can create documents. It has knowledge about itself. It has knowledge about designing front ends. Now, I've also got these things, which I just showed you. I also created a data visualization style guide. They also have a skill creator. So if you want to create a new skill, you can say, hey, let's create a new skill. And that'll start the skill, the skill creator skill, and it'll interview you about what kind of a skill you want to create. So that's kind of a cool thing. It's kind of self-referential, but it tells you how it does it, and it says what kind of a skill do you want to build? Do you want to build more Valo analytics? Do you want to build MicroStrategy integration helpers, etc.? So let's forget about that for a minute, and I can also say let me go back, and I've also got the agents available. So now you can combine MCP agents with skills. I can say, what Valo tables do you have access to? And this will use the MCP agent. And I have two agents, basically. I have Valo get knowledge and Valo query. So the get knowledge, think about it as metadata. It has the tables and the attributes in the tables. So here are the tables that I have access to. And I can say what attributes are in DB web. Actually, I don't have to be specific. I can say, and so it will use the Valo get knowledge again. And I've got a whole metadata repository for attributes and tables. So here are all the columns that are in web traffic, the metrics, etc. So you can see, between the MCP agents, which are very dynamic, and the skills, we can start to layer things, and start to give Claude some guidance in terms of how to do certain workflows. So if we come up with a really nice workflow, Brendan sits and says, well, we should really kind of guide it how to do certain things, make sure that we're not getting different people aren't getting wildly different results. We can write a skill that says, well, if we're going to talk about web traffic, we want to take these things into account. And the other nice thing, and a little bit of a shortcut, is I can actually, kind of preload. I've got my Valo context thing. If I just type that in, it'll actually kind of force load it, but it'll also give me a summary of what's in there. So it'll read the skill and load it into its context, so it's fresh and kind of ready to go, but it'll also tell me what's going on in there. So it'll tell me about the fiscal calendar, the demand waterfall, which all of this stuff needs to be validated and looked at and make sure it's correct. Key KPIs, abbreviations, join keys, etc. So we're kind of at the end of our time, but this has been kind of a broad-ranging survey of things. What I want to do next week is get a little bit more into skill development. So we'll talk about how to think about skills and how to bring them in. And I think, well, I know that Neil is not on the call, but I know that Viore is, I think, rapidly settling on Claude as sort of an enterprise standard, and that the infrastructure team is rolling out licenses to themselves. Neil's got a couple. I think, Chris, you're one of the lucky recipients, maybe.
I haven't gotten it yet, but I'm waiting for my Christmas present, Tom.
Yeah. Parit and I have been experimenting heavily, and we're going to advocate for the rest of the AI/ML team to get ICON licenses for Claude. We'll see. We'll see if we can justify that, but I think the results have been pretty astounding in terms of once we got the agent set up to connect to Valo, the data that it's pulling back, every time we've dug into it, it looks accurate. It's not doing crazy things. So we're pretty happy with I think the idea is more, who's gonna get access to this. There's concerns over, it's a pretty powerful tool. We want to make sure that it's used in the right hands in the right way with some thoughtfulness around it. So we don't see necessarily, throwing this open to everyone in the company to ask any question they want. We want some we want some guidance and some data science thinking behind it. So we're in discovery mode, but it's looking really, really interesting, both from a coding perspective and from the ability to generate ad hoc queries and analyses that have some fairly deep thought behind them. Go ahead, Brendan.
No, I was just going to say I'm excited. I think it's good. I don't know what the long-term vision is for this, for the company in regards to this, but assuming we get everything set up really well, we get the skills integrated, it feels like it has the opportunity to be that perfect middle ground that I think that there's a massive appetite for within the business. Like, it's not Valo that takes a long time sometimes to get fully developed, but it still has like the business knowledge with the skills. It's controlled through the data science team, and you can produce quick outputs for ad hoc analysis. I think it's just like, I think it's the piece of the puzzle that the data and analytics team has been missing, in all honesty. So I'm very, very excited. I think there's going to be really, really good results from this.
I think the first stage will be facilitated question answering.
It's going to take a long time to get it to the right point.
Oh yeah.
But I think when that time comes, or even if it never gets out of our hands, right? If we still are kind of the only owners, just for somebody to be able to ask a question, be like, give me 5 minutes, and really have to allocate no time towards it.
Do me a favor, as y'all build this, think about how we can track the questions that it gets asked, so that we can score them and teach people to ask better questions.
Yeah, that's a good point. And maybe the Claude direct chatbot interface isn't the right interface. Maybe we need a facade in front of that where we can capture the questions. We can capture some feedback from the user saying, this was a good answer, this was not a good answer. And then somebody can, it's kind of like a customer review, I give this answer 4 stars because it missed this one nuance. And then we can fix that by putting that nuance into a skill, so that it knows that, oh, you can't combine those two concepts.
Chris, you say score the questions. I've seen Tom in our examples in our ML morning calls ask questions like, how did pants do last year? And it's shocking how good the results are for how open-ended the question is.
Right.
Yeah. It developed an entire pants dashboard. An interactive pants dashboard.
It's pretty amazing what it'll just, the relationship stuff is just mind-boggling to me. The stock out one with the replacement stuff and how it was measuring the daily average sales for the trailing period, and was seeing that it broke trend, and I'm like, my gosh, man, what would it took in terms of brain power to come up and build all that outside of that box?
Just writing the SQL that was accurate, it's like kind of, difficult SQL to write. So, all right, guys, that's where we are for today. Thanks for those of you who made it. We'll start next week. We'll do a little bit more on skills, and we'll have some to show off. But the skills lay somewhere in between coding an agent and giving guidance. So I think skills are huge. And I just want to be clear, there's kind of two different kinds of skills. One that applies to Claude Code, which are about coding workflows that can speed up, like Parit was talking about. They could potentially be a data science workflow that involves writing code. And then there's sort of the more generic skills that apply to the chatbot approach, which guide the usage of tools which guide the interpretation of data and different things like that. So two different ways to look at things, and we can definitely explore both, but we'll do that starting next week. So thanks again, everybody, and we'll see you soon.
Appreciate it, Tom.
Thanks, Tom. Good stuff as
Thank you, Tom.
always.
Thanks, Tom.
Thanks, Tom.